Oh, yeah, man, that's Bootsy Collins from Bootsy's Rubber Band. You know what I'm saying? Funk in its prime.
Yeah, mindset. I remember that character from back in the day.
Oh, you know something about that?
Yeah, man, that dude was a monster on the scene back then.
Oh, so you do know something about it.
Oh, yeah, people couldn't get enough of Zilla. But I think his biggest problem was dealing with Kong.
Come on, man. We're talking about Bootzilla.
I like to be educated, but I'm so frustrated.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Mr. Mindset. Tonight we're going to get into Bootsy Collins and that time that he joined James Brown. A lot of people have been asking me about that, how long he was with him and stuff like that. So we're going to get into that tonight. But before I get into that, man, I got to go into something that's very important to me. I want to do a little housekeeping. First of all, I see a whole lot of comments coming in and I sure enough appreciate them. But I can't answer all of them all the time. We do our best to do that because we are concerned about our viewers here. And most of all, I want to recognize a couple of people who actually support this channel. 2 from the old school and 2 that recently joined. We want to talk about Frank Gamavikas. Thanks, guy. He's been hanging in there for a while. And JBS256A has always been there. And then I got 2 new people that just came on. I want to shout out to Helena. Thank you for joining. And I also want to shout out Ken Blackman. Thanks, guy. I'm glad you guys appreciate what's going on. And I hope a lot more viewers would take interest and join also. Okay, so from right now, I'm just going to jump right into the story, the day that Bootsy Collins joined James Brown. Hang around to the end. I'll see you then.
Yeah, the devil knows Bootzilla's here.
Yeah, man, we are about to get into Bootsy Collins.
The world's only rhinestone rock star down in.
And that day, he officially joined James Brown and made the funk sound different.
Get on up, get on up, get up, get on up.
Right there, you can hear the difference. With that bass line Bootsy was laying down, they call him Bootsy, Bootzilla, Casper, Bootleg, and the Star Child, plus more. But this wild cat was born William Earl Collins on October 26, 1951 in Cincinnati, Ohio. He grew up in a house vibrating with soul, jazz, and gospel. Oh, the name? Well, he said one day his mother looked at him and called him Bootsy. He asked why, and she said, "Boy, you just look like a Bootsy." It made no sense, but okay. So, from around 10 years old on, it was Bootsy. Bootsy discovered early that the bass was not just an instrument. It could talk, groove, and move a whole room. By his teens, he and his brother Catfish were already cutting their teeth with their own group called the Pacemakers. This was a powerhouse lineup with Bootsy on bass, his older brother Phelps Catfish Collins on guitar, Frankie Cash, Waddy on drums, and on vocals, they had the legendary Felipe Wynne. Yeah, the same Felipe Wynne who would later become the superstar lead singer for the Spinners. Now, they were officially the Pacemakers, but in their session work at King Records, they were credited as the Pace Setters, and they were learning how to run a band with rhythm, attitude, and personality. Then came 1970, which was a pivotal moment in funk history. James Brown was already a legend and was preparing to perform in Columbus, Georgia when everything came to a head. Just before showtime, most of his backing band had finally had enough. Years of brutal demands, pay disputes, and the relentless grind of the road caught up all at once, and they walked. James did not argue or negotiate. When challenged, he did what he always did. He replaced the problem. From Columbus, James had Bobby Bird place an urgent call to Cincinnati. "Call them Collins boys," he said. On the other end of the line was Bootsy, who honestly thought the call had to be a joke. That feeling disappeared the moment James Brown sent his private plane to pick them up. They were flown straight to Georgia and pushed on stage almost immediately. The crowd had been waiting for hours and was already furious at James for starting so late. But the band cranked up and made it through. What saved the night was preparation people forget to mention.
James said, "Well, I'm gonna call the songs off to you. Y'all just hit it, And we got up on the stage, and that's what he did. But he kind of knew that we knew all the songs of his anyway. So all he did was get on the stage and call the songs off, and we kind of hit them.
These kids had been hanging around King Records in Ohio, where James Brown did his recording, building a reputation and absorbing the James Brown ecosystem from the sidelines. Without that familiarity, the story would have never gotten this far. But that night wasn't just about replacing musicians, it was about resetting the entire engine of the music. James took a few weeks off to rehearse this new band into perfection. Bootsy brought a rubbery, syncopated style that was bold and playful, forcing James Brown to reinvent his own sound. James did not want anybody to outshine him, though.
I don't think he really liked it because it was so dynamic that it kind of overshadowed James Brown, you know. When Bootsy's on stage, you gotta watch Bootsy. You gotta listen to Bootsy, you know.
I was kind of, doing the freaky kind of bass thing, like playing lead bass, and, it was like, nah. He was like, settle down, son, settle down. He called me his son, it was like, okay, all right, Dad, what's up,
A lot of ignorance, he didn't understand the music because he hadn't been with me. But once I taught him, he could take it another step, because he was playing a bass faster than anybody at that time.
But for now, he went along with this new youthful flavor, even though he was harboring a little resentment at the same time, and had to aim some of Bootsy's energy in the right direction, teaching him the philosophy of playing on the one or hitting that first beat like a hammer. He even bought Bootsy a Fender jazz bass to make sure the tone was exactly right. The mentorship was real, and the transformation came fast. And despite the underlying tension, in less than a year, this new lineup recorded some of the most iconic funk tracks ever.
Fellas, I'm ready to get up and do my thing. I want to get into it, man,
Yeah, Sex Machine.
1, 2, 3, 4. Get up, get on up.
And him and Bobby Bird were up there writing the lyrics on a paper bag, That was a deep night, because we finished the gig and we got on the bus, and all of a sudden this vibe started happening, and he wanted to go to the studio. So we went straight from the gig to the studio and recorded Sex Machine.
Super Bad, the anthem, Soul Power, the legendary Talking Loud and Saying Nothing. But Bootsy and the others were young and immature in a lot of ways. They had trouble following Brown's strict rules. James was not cool with them going out to party after shows.
He didn't want us to go out and have fun. The whole thing was, when we got finished with the show, he made sure we had things to do, like rehearse. He made sure he kept us busy because we were young and foolish.
Crazy, right? And James was strictly against drug use, which these young cats kept testing him on. James loved Bootsy like his own, so the others would push Bootsy into asking James to let them slide. They also started pushing him to ask James for more money. With all of that, and the infamous night where the LSD seemed to have taken over, where on stage Bootsy was hallucinating that his bass had turned into a snake in his hands, man, homeboy was just zooted, effing up the show, and he could not stop laughing at the Godfather. This is when James finally caught on to what was going on behind his back.
And James was hip to what was happening, and he was like, he's told me, he said, Bootsy, I ain't going for it this time, All of y'all that can't dig it, you're fired.
So, forget about the one, the fellas would now be playing on the zero. Yes, sir, it was time for Bootsy and the others to go. Most people think Bootsy played with James a long stretch, but in reality, Bootsy's time with James Brown lasted only about 11 months, not even a year. But that was enough time to eventually make him a household name in the future. Following their exit with James on tour in Europe, the group returned home to Ohio and briefly performed under the names The House Guests and Complete Strangers, just before moving to Detroit in 1972. It was actually Felipe Wynne who first suggested they head there to join the Spinners, but Destiny had other plans. They connected with George Clinton and joined Funkadelic instead. He gave them all the freedom they wanted and needed. This was where the one met the mothership. But Felipe eventually went on to the Spinners anyway, to replace his cousin G.C. Cameron on lead when they had a strange contract problem that made Cameron ineligible to perform anymore with the group. But Bootsy and the others became a cornerstone of the P-Funk sound, playing on masterpieces like Maggot Brain, Cosmic Slop, and Knee Deep, along with many others. He later stepped into his own as a songwriter, co-writing massive anthems like Tear the Roof Off the Sucker, Flashlight, and One Nation Under a Groove. And no, those are not the limits to the hits. Oh, but there is one notable thing about the Knee Deep hit. On it, Bootsy was reuniting with Pacesetter band brother again when Felipe sang the lead vocal on that monster. In 1976, George Clinton encouraged Bootsy to lead his own spinoff, Bootsy's Rubber Band. And like George did, Bootsy created alter egos and characters that enhanced his funk image. His music gave us slow burn classics like
till I'm through. Oh, yes, I do.
I'd Rather Be With You, and top 10 hits like The Pinocchio Theory. But in 1978, he released his #1 single, Bootzilla, where he debuted his persona as the world's only rhinestone rock star monster.
Oh, yeah, I'm programmable. One heck of a doll, baby mama. Bootzilla here!
Now, you know the story is way bigger than this. But we were only focused on the day Bootsy Collins joined James Brown. Even now in 2025, Bootsy is still the #1 funketeer. On April 11th, he released his 23rd studio album, Album of the Year #1 Funketeer, featuring everyone from Snoop Dogg to Ice Cube. He even dropped a heavy metal funk explosion called Metal Health with Buckethead and Victor Wooten. Whether he is in the studio or being honored with tribute concerts in Detroit, Bootsy proves that the funk is as much about attitude as it is about the music. That day in 1970 did not just change his life, it made the funk unstoppable.
Hey, and that's just what it is, man. Bootsy Collins, one of the greatest. Hey, man, one thing about Bootsy is one of those players that does something that a whole lot don't even think about doing. Throw some distortion on his bass and play a solo. Y'all seen him do that? That's some crazy stuff, man. Anyway, I hope you guys appreciate that. Check back with the Music Mindset channel, and I'll see you guys later.